This episode of Come to Therapy with me is possible thanks to Pediasure, the health shake that helps your fussy eater improve their appetite in 4 weeks. I'll tell you more shortly, but please remember that Pediasure is food for special medical purposes, and use Pediasure only under medical supervision.
Nine podcasts.
Hey, Nicolina here. Oh, that little guy? That's my boy Noah. Yep, that's also him. He may be the light of my life right now, but that didn't stop the postnatal depression. Now I'm pregnant with my second, and to be honest, I need help. So I'm turning to therapy to deal with all the anxiety, the worries and the blues that come along with the most important role of my life, motherhood. Sit with me each week as I try to figure out how I can navigate these rough seas. The information presented in this podcast is for general information only and not suitable for independent professional advice. If this podcast has raised any issues for you or you need information or support, please contact your medical professional or Panda on 1300 726 306. I haven't really been able to pinpoint where I went wrong there, where I could have gotten a more realistic assumption, or how I could have prepared myself a bit more mentally about stepping back, like taking such a massive step back from my career. Not just a little one, not just like a temporary, it's a massive step.
So it's January 2021 and I'm sitting with my family and friends on the couch watching something on TV I've never seen before. Me.
We've ended up in what is like its own little world in Sydney, Darling Square, home to some quirky little food joints.
I'm on TV. It was something I'd worked on for a whole year, a passion project of mine, one of the proudest moments in my career so far.
This is the best sandwich I've ever had. Sorry, Mum. This is the best sandwich I've ever had.
12 p.m. the next day, Noah decided it was time to make his entrance into the world. Yes, I went into labour.
I'm not changing the channel. I'm not changing the channel. Do you want to watch this or do you want to play games? Because dinner's over.
The contrast between those two major events perfectly summarises the pull I feel between the passion I have for my work and my career and the love I have as a mother. Balancing the two is nothing short of challenging. And to be honest, there actually doesn't seem to be any balance at all right now. Part of me just thought it would be easier to do this. But the reality is my career is really suffering and it really sucks. Today, I want to admit just how much this is affecting my mental state. And it's something that, as wrong as it sounds for me to say, I can't help but associate with Noah. Ridiculous, I know, but that's just the honest truth. A truth I want to share with Charisse so hopefully I can leave today's session feeling a little less like a horrible person.
Catching up on a lot of work from the week that I had with COVID, which kind of leads me to like what I wanted to talk about today, which is work and career.
Yes.
And getting back into that post-baby and about to go on another.
And about to have it again.
Maternity leave.
Another break.
I feel like going into maternity leave this time around,
Yes.
I'm trying to set some different expectations.
Right.
Because the first maternity leave, Charisse, I feel like I was blindsided as to what maternity leave was actually
What it actually was like.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I had such a great pregnancy.
Yes.
I just didn't have like too much sickness. I
Yep.
wasn't really bedridden or anything like that. So I kind of just powered through working. I powered through anything that I was like completing at the time, little projects and stuff. Mm-hmm. So in my head, like I thought, oh yeah, like I'll take 12 months, but I'll be back after 6.
Right.
You know, I don't know why, but I just thought it was going to be easy. Like, small thing.
Yes.
I thought it was going to be really easy to send an email during the day.
Which, I mean, when you're not with a baby and pregnant, and of course, right? Like emails
How hard could it be, right?
Easy. Yeah.
And so I thought that I could get back to, you know, little projects and things that I could work on the side pretty quickly.
Right.
And that kind of really motivated me because I'm such a career-driven person.
Yes.
It was really daunting that I was going to take so much time off. So I thought, oh, well, I'll fill a bit of the time with some side projects, and then eventually I'll get back to work.
So it gave you maybe almost a sense of security.
Yeah.
Like, I'm about to step away from work and into an unknown, but I feel a little bit contained if I can still see how that thread of work kind of continues into this next chapter.
I would say I even thought I would have more time. I thought it was like I was taking a break from work.
Yeah.
And then I would have this, in my head, I thought, you know, baby's napping and I'll have an hour to do whatever I want and open up my laptop. And I think because as well, I was gathering a lot of momentum in my career right before Noel was born.
Right.
Even as an example, the night before Noel was born, I had a segment on TV air with me featured in it, which was something that I'd been working on that whole year. And it was,
my goodness.
It was huge. And I was watching it with my family and friends, and it was just this big peak that I was enjoying. And then I gave birth to Noah the next day. And so the contrast.
Huge contrast.
Yeah.
Yes, this huge high, which really kind of was representative of huge achievement in that career space. And then you were plunged into this motherhood landscape for which you had never walked before.
No.
Or had no experience.
Yeah. I probably had the wrong assumptions, which, you know, I feel like give me a bit of a break. How was I meant to know?
And not even that, like, I think we hear some of the messaging, right, around what babies do or what we see on social media or what we see in the movies is of pictures or images of babies being very settled and very calm and having a feed and then having a lovely long sleep. So of course you went into that space with that expectation.
I haven't really been able to pinpoint where I went wrong there, where I could have gotten a more realistic assumption, or how I could have prepared myself a bit more mentally about stepping back, like taking such a massive step back from my career. Not just a little one, not just like a temporary, it's a massive step. Yeah.
It's almost a stepping back, but a stepping away from. And it's a stepping away from not just your career, but how you identify yourself to be.
Yeah.
So before having Noah, a huge amount of your identity was tied up in work and the achievements at work and all of that stuff. And then we're stepping into motherhood and we don't know what we look like as a mum, right? Because we've never done that before, particularly first time. Plus this other bit at play, which is kind of these expectations. And as you say, how did I know to have different expectations of what it would be like? I would have oodles of time just to get on with the things that I wanted to get on with a baby who was sleeping peacefully. And you know what? It's a trap that a lot of women will fall into because we just don't know. So one thing I really like to encourage women that I work with, or a lovely strategy to be able to use, is to go through an exercise where we really do try and break down kind of different domains of life, where we look at and consciously bring to mind, what are my expectations? And we label all of those expectations.
Yeah.
Then we go, well, I think this will happen. But the bit maybe that was missing for you was this other bit that said, and how else might this play out?
Yeah, that's so true. I never saw it any other way.
Yeah.
I thought this is going to give me like the time I need. I used to like talk to friends. I had a colleague who had a baby at the same time, and we used to talk about this life of leisure that we were about to live.
Yes.
Which, honestly, we honestly thought that like it was, weekly breakfasts and all that sort of stuff, compared to what it was at the time was, like barely having the courage to even leave the house.
Boom. So different.
It took so long just to have the confidence to be able to get in the car with my baby.
What do you think made it harder when you were actually there in that postpartum? Why do you think it was so different to what that expectation was telling you?
I think because my personality didn't suit the type of person who would be okay with the situation.
Got it.
So my sense of like selfishness and loving like the time to myself and being able to work on things, and I'm a very like I need to get stuff done and don't like something on my to-do list. I very quickly realised that you just can't be that type of person and also have a newborn around.
Yes, you can't be fully that type of person and care for a newborn.
So letting go of that, I mean, even now, like I slightly struggle with it, but coming to that term of being able to let go of the pedantic type of person I was.
Right.
And be able to say it's okay that all I did today was have a shower and not the 4 things that I wrote down that I thought I was going to do. You know?
Those 4 emails that you wanted to
just
send.
one email. That's all I wanted to send.
And it sounds so simple, doesn't it? And I think this is where if we can do a whole lot of work preparing as best we can.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we have these expectations and they're really subconscious. We don't even know that we're holding these expectations.
Yeah.
And maybe we're also not used to challenging our expectations, particularly if we have all of this other information feeding in, which kind of confirms that this is how things, how we think things will go. It's very hard then to challenge that. And I wonder also, Nikki, I think there's something a little bit protective that we kind of do link into expecting things to be a certain way if it feels like that makes us feel a little bit more contained.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I wonder how you would have felt if during your pregnancy you could kind of look into your maternity
Oh my gosh.
leave. That would have felt a little bit overwhelming at the same time.
That's true, yeah. Maybe ignorance was bliss.
And it's hard to find that balance, isn't it? How much do we want to know? Or how much, I would even say, how much can we know?
Yeah.
Yeah, because someone could have said to you during your pregnancy, actually, it's going to be really hard to send an email. Your baby's going to maybe be unsettled and need X, Y, and Z. And I wonder whether you would have heard that.
I wouldn't
during
have
your
believed
pregnancy.
them.
Yeah, what would you have done with that information?
I would have, honestly, in such a bitchy way, I would have been like, no, you can't send an email. I'll be able to send an email.
I can do it.
Yeah, it felt like I was so ready to just be like prepared and on top of the world and keep things rolling.
Yes.
And, you know, part of that though as well, Sharice, is, and I can admit that even now, I'm right in the midst of having kids. So it's still really hard for me mentally to accept that right now I'm not making any big moves in your career. I'm still so fearful that I've hit this massive pause button. I need some momentum. I need to keep something up, because then what am I going to do? When I get back into work, I'll be so behind and I won't be in the same position as people around me.
Who have maybe continued on with their whatever work's journey.
And can I just, and this is like really gets me, like even right now my blood's boiling. Is just, I know that men and women are different, and I know that, but you know, just seeing men get ahead in my industry and in my roles and stuff, I really struggle.
It infuriates you.
Yeah.
Like it's really quite frustrating.
Really frustrating.
It's a bit unfair.
It does. It feels like it's unfair, and that's like really hard for me to accept sometimes.
It's hard for you to accept because part of you wants that to be continuing for your career path, right?
Yeah.
But there's a bit of a conflict, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we also want to have kids and have a family.
Yeah.
And that takes time and effort and energy.
It does.
I like how you just described it though. You used a really fabulous word, which was a pause.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is very different to, well, I just have to stop, because that kind of gives us a different message.
Yeah.
But it's a pause, and it's a conscious pause.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's a pause we're choosing to engage in. Just pause for a bit, but I know I will come back in and I'll press play again.
I mean, I already subconsciously look at it as a pause, but I think there's just still that like fear inside me that I've stopped a marathon, everyone's running ahead of me.
Yeah. And the way I would just reframe that, because that's hard, yeah, when we're sitting in that space and we feel like we're stopped and we're falling back and everyone else is continuing and kicking goals and whatever, particularly if career goals are important to us, it's hard to watch others do that while we're kind of sitting still. The way I would just stretch out that a little bit is to say we all pause in different ways at different times. And yes, everyone might be running this marathon and you're paused here. At some point, these people up here are going to pause and you'll keep moving forward. And then they'll pause again and you'll pause again differently. We're all moving forward, but just at different rates.
That's a really good way to think about it, actually. And part of that as well is, again, I feel really bad saying this. I feel like every time I say something like, not mean about Noah, but like, I can't help as well sometimes like blame him in a way. I'm going to cry now again.
It's hard hearing myself even say that. We'll unpack.
All parents want to know their child has a balanced diet, but it can be extra challenging with a fussy eater. That's where Pediasure may help. It's a health shake for fussy eater kids and helps improve appetite in 4 weeks. Your child will love the vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate flavours, and there are more serving ideas in the free recipe book at pediasure.com.au. Remember that Pediasure is food for special medical purposes and use only under medical supervision. Buy in quality pharmacies.
These emotions next.
That's hard to say out loud, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's one thing having the thought,
Yeah.
but saying it out loud makes it feel very real.
Yeah, I mean, like, blame is such, like, I don't blame him. I don't, but, you know, it's just really hard to, I'm taking this break for him and to have this time with him and, like, to have my kids and, like, have this set up this amazing life because that is what I've wanted.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, surely I'm not the only one sitting there thinking, like, I want to work and I don't want
to keep moving forward with my work, and I don't necessarily want to stop my work.
Yeah.
But I want kids as well, and I don't know how to make sense of what this looks like.
Yeah.
Having Noah, he's kind of fused to the event of work stopping, right?
Yeah.
So those two events are fused, and it's not because it's Noah's fault that he was born, because he wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, we chose to bring him into this world. That faulty link sits there because we just have those two events as fused events. So I think what's helpful is to sometimes to be able to separate them and say these two things happened together. Work stopped and I had Noah. And this is, I think, what I'm hearing from you, this conflict of values, right? So one of your core values, which I think we've spoken about before, is like you're career driven.
Yeah.
You want to progress in a career and have that part of your life really kind of active and shining bright. And at the same time, you're very family oriented.
Yeah.
Yes, and you want space and time to be a mum, to be the best mum that you can and be present.
I feel like really pulled between those two all the time.
Totally. I think a lot of women do, right? When we are doing that juggle, when we do have such strong value systems that do often sit in conflict. Because like you've said, it's very hard to be both.
I mean, as you said, I think I'm linking these two things together, which is Noah to maybe this negative thing in my life.
Yes.
And I don't really know how to look at it in like a different way.
I would look at it as my choice was to pause, and I would just come back to the pause on work and sitting in this space with Noah, who you love, and you love being a mum to him, and letting those two events sit separately.
Yeah.
So it's not Noah's fault that work is paused.
I try and look at it as like a whole stage in my life, because I know that, you know, I'm having 2 kids now, and I always knew that I wanted more than one child.
Right.
So I'm trying to tell myself that this is just like a block in my life. But I guess just in my head, because there's no end. Like for me, you don't really know the end point.
No,
I don't know.
There's no crystal ball, right? Yeah.
So that's really daunting as well, is I don't know, you know, is this my last child? And when, and when will it be okay enough to go back into, you know, I work part-time now, but really full-time, and make sure I'm like leaping back into it. And that uncertainty is really like unsettling a lot of the time.
There aren't many people that like uncertainty, so you're not alone. It feels uncomfortable, doesn't it? And particularly for you, Nikki, I think you know, you've said this before, you like order, you like to know when things are happening, you like schedules, right? So that is where you find great comfort, in having predictability around you. And you're now in this space, which is this motherhood, child rearing space, where there's not a whole lot of predictability.
No.
So what we do lean into the bits that we do know are predictable, which is a bit, which it's still a little bit loose, right? But it's predictable in the sense of, I know at some point work will come online again for me. I know that will happen because I want that to happen. Yeah, I just don't know in what year or at what age my children are going to be. So we can lean into that bit a little bit rather than it all just feeling like a big unpredictable mess out in front of us.
I know it will happen one day. It just feels so far away.
It feels like a lifetime away.
It feels so far away because,
it?
you know, right now it's kind of like a stop and pause as well. And like I had Noah, I went back to work at 8 months and then, you know, went back to work for 3 days, then 4, but now it's like right back into maternity leave and it's so much back and forth.
Well, it's a constant reorienting, isn't it? Like you're reorienting from being in full-time work to being on mat leave to then being part-time, and you're constantly having to update. How do I make sense of this? Where's my balance sitting? And maybe seeing it just as that for the next little while. My scales will keep tipping in terms of that work scale and motherhood scale, and they're just tipping and they're about to get really heavy in the motherhood space. The work stuff doesn't go away. It just is, we're not tipping so much into that space. And we watch for that tip to start to happen again in time to come.
When that tip happens though as well, something I felt with Noah a lot was like a little bit of guilt that I really wanted to get back into work. Yeah, I guess just because comparing myself to other mums who had babies at similar times who took a lot more, you know, time than me. Some mums were just like not even thinking about it. That kind of made me feel a little bit as well like, oh, maybe I'm being like a little bit selfish. Maybe more time is needed with Noah. But on the other hand, like I knew I was so ready just to have that time to myself. Just to have something for me. And it's just that mother guilt.
It's the mother guilt.
It's constant.
And you know what? That mother guilt often sits there when we are comparing to others, rather than just holding the frame that says every woman's different. Every woman's, as a mother, will have different needs, wants, desires, wishes, and that's okay. And these are my wants, desires, wishes, needs as a woman and as a mother. And this is my friend Betty's wants, desires, wishes, needs, and that's okay for her as a woman and a mother. So I think it's so important that we really can anchor back into, but what's important to me? What makes me me? What fuels me? What gives me my spark? And I would be saying to any woman, any mother, we have to focus and make time for those things that give us our brightness and our sparkle. Otherwise, what's the point? We're going to feel pretty rotten if we're investing all this time because we think we should. There's that should word, but then we're miserable. So then I would say, hold up. Why are we doing this?
That's true, because when I started working again, I felt like when I would finish a day of work, I would be such a better mum to Noah. Like I was so excited to see him, and like I made the most of those few hours every night. And so like on one hand, I know that it makes me like a better person and a better person at home and a better mum to him. But on the other hand, it's like, does that make me a really bad person? Because I'm basically saying that spending time away from you is what makes me happier.
Interesting.
But I guess but it's not time away from, it's more time for me, right?
Absolutely. I think that's a bit of a faulty link. And that's that assumption of I'm feeling better because I'm away from you. It's not because you're away from Noah. It's because you're engaging in something that fuels your sparkle, that gives you joy, that gives you that kind of achievement, and that's okay, right? It's okay for us to lean into activities and things that make us feel good about ourselves. We're not doing that just because we're trying to, in this instance, you're not trying to avoid being with Noah. You're saying being with you fills my cup, but also being at work fills my cup. And I've realised, and it's really, you know, we're wise if we can realise what things fill our cups and we can actually engage in those things. Our cups get filled in different ways.
Sometimes I'm like hide that part of me. So a friend of mine, she's absolutely loving maternity leave. She doesn't think she's going to go back to work. And I just, like, I remember going home and I thought, like, oh, that is just so far from who I am. Like, I know I would not be able to be a stay-at-home mum. But in a way, like, I commend anyone who can do that. But then I thought, like, I feel like I have to hide that part of me, you know, and just say, like not really revealed. Like, oh yeah, I'd love to also be a stay-at-home mum. No, I wouldn't. The honest truth is, no,
exactly.
I really wouldn't. So I think I need to be a little bit more, confident in that and just like look at it as I'm doing something for myself and my whole family. I'm not just doing something for myself and taking things away from my children because that's not what I'm doing.
But also giving yourself permission to just be you. Yeah, and your friend is being her, and that's great. And I think we spend so much time trying to justify why we're doing the things we're doing, but maybe to ourselves, but also to others.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can just kind of lean into it a little bit, like know why we're doing the things we're doing, that's important, but then we don't need to justify it.
Yeah.
We can just own it.
Yeah.
No, this is me. This is what makes me tick.
Yeah.
And this works really well for me.
Yeah.
And then we can shine with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess not judge my friends as well.
Absolutely.
If that's their thing, then that's their thing.
Absolutely.
Right?
So let's let go of judgment.
Yeah.
I think every woman and every mother is navigating through this. It's a hard space to navigate through. There's so many changes and different situations that we're faced with and different strong feelings that we just have to, if we can hold compassion for ourselves, to let ourselves make sense and find our way and let others do that for themselves as well without judgment.
100%.
Yeah. Good.
Makes so much sense.
It makes sense,
Makes
but it's
sense.
so hard to
bit harder
link
to
into
apply, but
sometimes.
makes sense. Yeah.
Well, here is the beginning, right? We let this now trickle down and see where it lands. Good session.
Good session. Thanks, Trace.
Oh, my pleasure.
So that's the big takeaway from today. Be kind to ourselves, to others, and yes, I need to learn to take my own advice. Thanks for your company. Come to Therapy with Me is hosted by me, Nicolina, and you can find me on Instagram at HeyNicolinaK. My wonderful therapist, well, that's Dr. Charisse. It's a 9 Podcasts original production. In the next episode of Come to Therapy with Me,
You know, people ask me, like, how are you going and stuff, and I just automatically kind of lie and say, yeah, everything's great.
You go to the good.
Yeah.
You put the mask on.
Like, everything's not great.
Yeah,
you know?
so interesting then, pause. Why do you think you do that? Why do you think you go to the good even when it's not good?
Finding a therapist that's right for you can take a little time, but when it comes to ensuring your fussy eater is eating right, Pediasure health shakes may make the whole process easier. Pediasure contains 28 essential vitamins and minerals, including iron and zinc, that help to support a healthy appetite in 4 weeks. You can download a recipe book with ideas for the school lunchbox and also read product info at pediasure.com.au. Pediasure is food for special medical purposes and is available at quality pharmacies. Use only under medical supervision.